Hello once again, friends. I'm Burt Wilson, and this is Ancient Wisdom for the 21st Century. We're very glad you're here. Tonight we're going to continue on with our exploration of the foundations of our own existence, and we're going to talk about the evolvement, actually the birth and evolvement of planets and stars, including our own planet Earth. And we'll get to that right after this. Okay, I want to start off with something that's really important. It's something that Madame Blavatsky wrote in The Secret Doctrine. She said that the law for the birth, growth, and decay of everything in cosmos, from the sun to the glowworm in the grass, the law is one. It is an everlasting work of perfection with every new appearance, but the substance matter and forces are all one and the same. Now that's another way of saying what we've been saying all along. It's all one. We're all one. We're connected to everything in the universe, both living and what appears to be not living, such as, granite is the highest evolvement of rock. So think about the next time you're climbing around the rocks at Lake Tahoe, which is all granite. There's a lot of energy in granite. Okay, now with the explosion of a dormant Lea center, which we talked about in the last program, where the atom is awakened to life and throws up all this cosmic matter. It's the Big Bang, as a matter of fact. Among the energies released from the awakened atom are light, heat, electricity, attraction, and repulsion. Now, all these are the essential building blocks of universal construction. These energies will be brought to bear and focused on the billions of particles of spatial effluvia, which will be scattered around chaotically within the universe. These particles are known as fiery lives. That means every atom is alive. They're known as fiery lives in the ancient wisdom because each atom also has consciousness, whether it is part of an animate or an inanimate thing, as we were just talking about. This effluvia will now float around the universe for a while, circling in chaotic patterns while picking up and amassing cosmic matter from primordial chaos. Motion is the eternal order of things, and attraction is its slave. Now the stanzas of Dazan, which Blavatsky has in The Secret Doctrine, they state that the central hidden sun causes psychic energy to collect primordial dust in the form of little balls to impel them to move in converging lines and finally to approach each other and aggregate. So the first thing that happens, a lot of dust balls are aggregated together through the motion in space. Now, being scattered in space without order or system, the world germs come into frequent collision until their final aggregation, after which they become wanderers, cosmic wanderers, which we call comets. Then the battles and struggles for existence begins. What happens is the older bodies, aggregates of matter, attract the younger, while others repel them. Now many perish, devoured by their stronger companions. Those that escape become worlds like our planet. The job of bringing about an orderly universe begins with the building of visible suns. The suns come before the planets. This building process requires the seven celestial beings to work from within without. That is, all suns, planets, and stars in the universe begin with a central core ball of matter, around which all else will be constructed by the process of will and yoga, which is focused thought by celestial beings. Once a sun is constructed, you can be sure that it will also explode in the course of time and shoot its own flaming fragments out into space, which will collide with other objects of floating matter and become centers for wandering comets. See how this goes? It's all by chance, actually, from here on in. It's all by attraction and repulsion. These comets will approach and aggregate with others over time until they acquire the mass required to bring them into an orbit around the visible sun. So the whole thing is to move around until you acquire enough mass to come into orbit around a visible sun. Eventually, we get a solar system. Within telescopic sight of our solar system, thanks to the Hubble telescope, exist suns and other solar systems and planets and stars in all stages of evolution in our universe. Some planets are man-bearing planets like ours. They are formed precisely for the evolution of life forms, whether human, as on Earth, or other kinds of life forms which are found on other planets. Each man-bearing planet is built, so to speak, by one of the high beings in the highest creative hierarchy of celestial beings. Each planet will be septenary in nature, as will each human being on it, or each being on it. A man-bearing planet is built as a vehicle for both the physical and spiritual evolution of human beings, as well as the planet itself, which is also true of our own planet, our Earth. And the celestial being who builds a planet also becomes the Manu, which means the Lord or the host of the planet, as he or she is the archetypal thinker which put it all together. As Madame Blavatsky wrote in The Secret Doctrine, the universe exists for the progressive development of everything. Now think about that statement. I want to repeat it again because this is really important. The whole universe exists for the progressive development of everything. In other words, no matter in what stage an atom may be in this universe, it's evolving. And the whole universe exists for the progressive development or evolvement, if you will, of everything. Now, you might ask, the development of what? Of all things visible and invisible, all worked eventually into a pan-cosmos synthesis. Thus, each planet will have an overall sevenfold life growth cycle, just as we humans will also have our own overall sevenfold life growth cycle. The two cycles will evolve concurrently. A planetary cycle is made up of 7 stages. They're called 7 manvantaras, which proceed only on the 4 lower planes in the septenary model. That is because these are the planes of form, and the 3 higher planes are the planes of unembodied spirit. So physical evolution, whether it's a planet or a human being, takes place on the 4 lower planes. Now, we will study this planetary cycle first. Thus, a planet begins on the 4th plane not as a planet, but as a somewhat ethereal shadow or reflection of a thought form from a high being. You see, everything begins as a thought form from a high being. We began as a thought form from a high being. Now then, everything evolves downward. The planet evolves downward through the 3rd and 2nd planes, and it does that to gather mass and acquire mineral and vegetable life, and eventually human life. When the fourth period of evolution is reached, spirit and matter begin to part, and this process is completed when the midpoint of the fourth period is reached. Now, this midpoint, what they call the axial midpoint, actually occurred in Atlantis, and we are a few 100,000 years past that point now. Now, during the evolution from the ethereal to the material, the downward arc, the basic polarization of the planet is one of opposites attract. This allows the planet's core spiritual magnetism to attract the needed physical cosmic matter. After the axial midpoint has been reached at the middle of its evolution through the lowest or first plane, the polarity of the planet is reversed to like attracts like. And the planet begins its upward evolutionary arc then, where it now will be attracting higher spiritual energies. This is very important to understand. The planetary evolution attracts mass till it gets the axial midpoint. From then on the upward arc, the planet begins to spiritualize, so to speak, back into an ethereal form. And we on it will do the same thing. Now, this will cause a planet's humanity, as it passes through the third and second planes on the ascending arc, to rise in spirit in harmony with the planet's progress. This means that our physical bodies, as well as the physical earth, will become transmuted into progressively finer states of psychic energy. This is because the evolution of matter is really a progressive rearrangement of matter from simple physical form to a more complex and refined spiritual form. This transformation corresponds to both the progressive refinement of the matter of the earth and the matter of the human body. The result is a spiritual synthesis of both the planet and humanity. Eventually, at the end of the seventh period, the planet will be back where it started on the fourth plane again. Now, when it arrives there, it will be back where it started, but with a major difference. And that is that the planet and its humanity will be on a higher level than when they began their journey, because all evolutionary paths are upward rising spirals. It's just like if you took and wound wire around a core, you see. That's the way evolution goes in spiral. Each spiral is connected to the one that went before, but it's always rising. That's the whole idea in cosmos. Now, cosmic evolution always proceeds in septenary stages, but there are always higher planets of higher refinement. Thus, there is no final rest, you see, no final nirvana for any of us or the planets. There are plateaus where one assimilates one's learning, but activity never ceases, even during a pralaya, a period of inactivity. The ancient wisdom has always viewed rest not as repose, but as a change of work, a change of labor, as this is spiritually invigorating. It keeps us going, folks. Okay. In cosmos, knowledge and learning are infinite, as is the length of the spiritual path. Got that? Everything's infinite. Infinite exploration, infinite learning, infinite being in different forms. A star is also the creation of a celestial being who first meditates on how he wants his star to be and then creates it through the force of his will, which is enormous given his high planetary station. So every higher being, if he wants to, can become a star. Now, to understand why stars exist in the first place, we must ask the question, what happens to a high consciousness which, having risen to spiritual perfection, is still active in the universe? The answer is that many, if it is their mission to do so, will recreate themselves in the form of a star in order to cast the rays of their refined energies into surrounding space. Thus, they maximize their beneficial energies in a given area of the universe, ultimately, which is a blessing for the entire universe. That's the function of a star. For us, every time we look up into the sky at night, we actually bathe ourselves in the rays of the stars upon which we focus our attention. Some stars are larger than others and cast stronger rays. But the point is, some of these stars' rays help raise our consciousness. Others heal. They bring us the higher wisdom and the joy of spiritual awareness because they are offered to the universe as a sacrifice, a service by these high spirits. Now, true, most people do not understand or even notice this aspect of the stars. Nevertheless, there is a connection between us and the stars of the universe because their rays are reflected in our spiritual souls and influence our being. This is why we are so attracted to the night sky. Truly, the stars our friends in more ways than just brightening up outer space. You know, if you, a lot of people will go out and they'll focus on the star Orion, you see, or Sirius. These are both high stars, Arcturus, whatever you want to. When you look up and consciously connect with that stars, you bring the beneficial ray of that star into your consciousness, and this will help you spiritually. Now, there are serious implications for today's science involved in this evolutionary format. It means that when science views a planet in space, it may be in any of 4 different stages of development corresponding to the 4 lower planes. There may be lots of activity going on in the higher planes of a planet, but scientists will be unable to see it even with a telescope because the vibrations of the planets are above human eyesight. They may also be seeing a planet in its formative stage, such as Mars, for instance, or they may see a planet decomposing, such as our moon is. In any event, what they actually see will probably be a mirage of some kind, in that it will definitely not be what it appears to be. This is another reason why science should be looking not for life in outer space, life like us, but for consciousness, because consciousness is in everything. Now, until science gives up its prejudice against consciousness, it will continue to grope blindly in space. There is a side story to the evolutionary period of a man-bearing planet like ours, and it lies in the fact that a planet's humanity, not to mention its mineral, vegetable, and animal life, is irrevocably entwined with its progress. Each needs the other to complete its spiritual evolution. Now, for example, we human beings, as the only totally free-thinking elements in cosmos, we need the nourishment of the 6th principle, which is Buddhi, or spiritual light, in order to advance spiritually. Therefore, when we realize the transcendent nature of our own being and begin to work steadily on our own spiritual evolvement, we connect with the universal 6th principle, which is, again, spiritual light, or actually the Christ principle. And this resides inside us. And when we connect with that, it brings us enlightenment. At least this is the way it should happen. It can't happen, of course, if a person isn't aware of this beautiful concept to begin with. Now, for the earth, however, let's take the earth and look at it like we just looked at a human being. Humanity, collectively, everybody on earth, represents the sixth principle of the whole planet Earth. In other words, the planet is seeking enlightened and caretaking help from its humanity so it can evolve without any complications. A big part of that caretaking is that humanity is supposed to, at this time in its evolution, be in stronger contact with higher spiritual forces and energies. If it were in such contact, it would act as a magnet, attracting and disseminating these higher energies, such as the beneficial energies from stars and higher planets, into the Earth's surface. But because humanity is not in position to do this, and in fact is almost 180 degrees out of phase of doing so, the people on Earth are now acting collectively as electrical resistors, dissipating the needed energy. This means that the higher, finer light energies which reach the Earth's surface cannot be transmitted by humanity into the crust where they are needed to nourish the spiritual evolution of the planet. Having nowhere to go, these energies turn destructive and reinforce the chaotic, cataclysmic underground forces, causing the Earth to respond by means of earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and floods and fires and hurricanes, and every other sort of act of God catastrophe. We affect the Earth's surface. Now, when these things happen, this is the Earth's way of ridding itself of the cause of its distress. It does it for the same purpose as a doctor who cuts out a cancer in a patient. And if the equilibrium of the Earth ever goes too far out of balance, and this has happened in the past to our planet, the Earth poles will wobble and shift violently, and the tectonic plates on which the present continents rest will break up and roam free over the globe. Again, some continents sinking and some lost continents, such as Atlantis, rising again. The wandering pieces of present continents which do not sink will ultimately smash into one another. And this is how they throw up mountain ranges. And the piece of a broken continent will come together with another one and eventually stabilize to form a brand new continent. Now, the wandering pieces of present continents which do not sink will ultimately smash into another piece of a broken continent and eventually stabilize to form a new continent. And that's when they smash together, that's how the mountains are thrown up. Now, the last time this happened was at the time of Atlantis, and there was a great loss of life. According to the ancient wisdom, this again will be our fate if the Earth's humanity doesn't soon find a way to connect to the higher energies and begin raising its consciousness, and by osmosis, raising the vibrations of the planet. Thus, it is time for all nations and their peoples to quit thinking in terms of nationalistic and materialistic domination and begin cooperating with each other for the good of the planet. This may be the last chance we have to learn this all-important lesson. As Madame Helena Roerich wrote, humankind can be either the savior or destroyer of the planet. And the final question is, which will we become? I hope you've enjoyed our program tonight on how planets and stars evolve. We'll continue with our exploration into the foundations of existence next week. I'm Burt Wilson, and this is Ancient Wisdom for the 21st Century. Thank you very much for watching.